What's happening, guys? Happy Friday! And thank you for joining another special episode of Your Welcome. Boy, there's been a lot going on this week. I don't even know where to begin. Let's start with Cyborg. And I have to tell you, I don't take any pleasure in this, and I'm not even sure that I understand this. I cannot help, as this whole thing unfolded, as we've heard both sides, as we've had video evidence and proof and interviews, including right here on this show a week ago. Both sides. Cyborg side, Dana White's side. I cannot help but feel there's something missing. I really think that. It just seems as though something... Okay, let me unpack this, guys, for you guys real fast, okay? And I'm having to go back, and this is all off of memory, but the UFC Wanted Cyborg, and this goes back to Lorenzo Fertitta. Lorenzo believed in and saw something and wanted a division there with Cyborg, to the extent that when Cyborg was having a hard time finding fights, and that wasn't all that long ago, guys. That wasn't all that long ago that one, women's fighting was just new. Two, featherweights and building an entire division as a whole was hard to do. I mean, this wasn't that long ago. The UFC wasn't there yet. They didn't have the featherweights, and they didn't have 20 featherweights, all the things that you would need to launch a division. So they wanted to groom Cyborg, wanted to make sure she had opportunities, wanted to make sure she was making money, wanted to make sure her name was staying out there. And Lorenzo went to Invicta, which is where Cyborg was signed, and he personally just worked out the purse. I trust that Cyborg knows that. If I know this to be true, I trust that Cyborg knows that to be true. I'm not 100% though. Because, I mean, what a nice thing to do. And she was making, again, off the top of my head, but I'm real, if I'm not perfectly right, I'm really close to right, $90,000 a fight. And that was Invicta. I mean, not for nothing, I've ran small shows. There's no budget for that. You couldn't possibly pay somebody $90,000 when you have a business that's basically generated on live gate. Very hard way to do business, by the way. So, Zuffa, at the time, Dana and Lorenzo, are paying this to Cyborg, I guess with the vision that she will eventually come over. Oh, and by the way, when she comes, she's going to be in really good spirits. She's going to be very happy because of this very kind gesture that simply didn't need to be done. The reason I tell you I'm not positive that she knew, did you guys know that? Am I revealing? Now I can't remember how I heard this. I can't remember if this was public or if I heard this in some back room somewhere, because somewhere there's a part of me that feels that nobody knows that, and I'm even wondering if Chris knows, because if you do the math on that, it would seem as though she would come over very happy. Oh my gosh, guys, thanks for looking out for me. Oh my gosh, you guys formed a division, and here I am, and here we all are. Oh my gosh, I'm about to fight for a world title. It would seem as though Lorenzo's math, logic, would favor him. It would seem like that. But there also seems that, God, maybe she didn't know that. I don't know. I don't know the answer to that, but that's the starting point. Okay, great. Cyborg comes over. She cleans house. Cyborg does a great job. What's hard for Cyborg, and many other athletes have had the same problem, is you need the right dance partner. There was a time, if you could have done Cyborg and Ronda Rousey, you could have had some really remarkable business and media attention and hype. Ronda was gone. Cyborg was in a different division anyway, and so now you need to start to form the division. Great. Nothing new that we haven't seen in this sport. But it seemed from day one that she just wasn't totally satisfied. She wasn't totally satisfied with the way that she was being treated. Now, prior to her coming, in fairness, I should add, prior to her coming and her being an asset for other organizations, there was a demotion of Cyborg. That's part of the business. A good promoter will demote a different fighter, the same as they can promote a fighter. Some of it's gamesmanship. Get what you want, get them over to your side. There's just a lot of that goes on. We have to accept that, and when we see it and observe it, sure, we could go, well, that was a mean thing to say, or somebody can have their feelings hurt, or we can just understand that this is just the way the sport is played. This is just simply the way it's played. Either way, some feelings were hurt. I'll leave it at that, but that's fair to say. So she comes over, she's getting just great opportunities. And I'm enjoying it too. I mean, right, I'm really getting pulling. I wanted to see Cyborg and the Iron Lady. I never got it, but I'm starting to really like some of the matchups for Cyborg. I wasn't overly into Cyborg Amanda Part 1. I wasn't into it because I knew how that was going to go. Well, I am into Cyborg Amanda Part 2 because I was wrong on how Cyborg versus Amanda Part 1 went, right? It was a big surprise when that happened. So, great for them. Good for the women, good for the division. Now we've got some momentum. Now we've got some storylines. Now all of a sudden us smart marks in the cheap seats don't know everything that we think we know, and that's a wonderful thing for a fan. Everything's going cool in the gang. Somewhere for Cyborg's last fight with Spencer, she was backstage. I trust that many of you guys have seen this. She's backstage, and Cyborg is a very good self-promoter. She puts out her own videos. She brings her own crew with her. So whatever attention she can get from the promotion, from the media, but then she also comes in to her own expense, makes her own videos, gets press, but has to do a lot of work, get to credentials and get passes, and she makes a show within the show. I believe it's called Cyborg Nation. She puts it out to Cyborg Nation, which means her fans. Great. Love everything she's doing. Smart. Get it. I'm in. Somewhere after her last fight, and it was post-fight, she's sweaty and she's banged up. She's backstage and she runs into Dana. And she has a quick interaction with Dana. It's very quick, but it's caught by her cameras. Great. They're doing what they're supposed to be doing. They're in the right place at the right time. Whatever she says to Dana and whatever he says back to her is a little bit hard to hear. Dana is not mic'd up. I don't believe Chris was wearing a mic. From a level of production that is relevant, because now you're talking about cameras that have the right mic on them. You got it's not a sound treated room. It can be really tough to get something organic like that. They're in the right spots. They do their level best, but because of the audio deficiencies, whoever made this video subtitled it. They actually typed out, put it right on the screen, what Cyborg says, and they typed out and put what Dana's response is. I saw the video. I believed it. Why wouldn't I? I mean, I've seen plenty of videos that's just like that. It's hard to understand somebody or somebody speaking a different language even perhaps, and so they subtitle it so that the viewer knows what's going on. I saw it. I believed it. There's also a confusion, and in this case, it's a confusion that adds validity. There are very few production companies, if you will, that are allowed backstage at an event. I think Scott Coker has a grand total of 0, and I think that the UFC has a grand total of 1. Which is Cyborg's. I could be wrong and there's more, but I don't think so. It's a very rare thing. Rare thing in a cool way. Cool, smart, expense investment into one's own career done by Cyborg. Everything's great. But the validity that it adds is when you put out some kind of footage like that, the viewer doesn't know who's making it. The viewer doesn't know who's producing it. So when the viewer sees something behind the stage, between the former champion, between the current president, they're going to believe what they see is accurate. Turns out, whoever went and subtitled it misquoted Dana. And I'll be the first to tell you it wasn't the world's biggest deal. I think what Cyborg had said to Dana was, there was a quick dialogue out there where Dana was telling people, hey, look, I'm having a hard time getting Cyborg versus Amanda 2, and it's on Cyborg's side. Amanda has already agreed. I'm having a hard time getting Cyborg to agree. That created a discussion by Cyborg saying, hey, that's not accurate. I will fight Amanda. I want to fight Amanda. And Dana's kind of looking around going, I want you to fight her, and she wants to fight you. So if you do want to fight, how could that be so? How could it be so if I'm coming out right now, power of the pen, and telling you that's the fight I want, but yet I can't make the fight? So now the audience has to decide, okay, where's the truth? What are we missing here? So when Cyborg comes out and she puts out this video, the way it's subtitled, she says to Dana, hey, you know I'm not scared to fight Amanda. You know I sent you a text. Says I want that fight. Dana responds something. Whatever the response was, whatever they subtitled is not what he said. Now, we're kind of splitting hairs. It wasn't the world's biggest deal. She didn't make Dana look like a fool. She didn't make herself look great. She didn't take anything away from Amanda. But she also put something, her side put something out with the validity and the confusion that this was a UFC product that changed the narrative and changed the words. Guys, there's reasons that words matter. There's a reason that we use them. It's what separates us from the animals, that we can communicate. Words matter. And if you're going to go out and misquote somebody who has allowed you to bring a team in, who is credentialed and allowed cameras in only for you, for absolutely nobody else, yes, there is an integrity there that it has to be straight. You have to do it right. That wasn't done. Now, is that the straw that broke the camel's back? I actually don't know. I don't know. I was on Ariel the Bad Guy. Ariel was telling the story, the same story that I just told you guys. And Ariel was the one that alluded to the fact that that was the straw that broke the camel's back. I think that he's right. Time-wise, it all lines up because instantly Dana's like, listen, I'm out. I'm releasing Cyborg. I wish her the best. She can go anywhere she wants. Automatically, the UFC, Bellator is the same way, but they have roughly 90 days to match any contract that you want once you become a free agent. Go talk to whoever you want, do whatever you want, but once you reach a deal with somebody, you bring me that deal, and if I want to take that deal, I trade places and I've got you. Okay, great. That's how that works. Okay, great. Dana comes out and forget it. We're good. I will have my lawyers draft this up. I will send it. She is free. She can go anywhere in the world that she wants. No match, no 90 days, no anything. I'm out. And there was a piece when you watch this where you're scratching your head going, okay, I got the message. That was very clear. But how'd we get here? And I just can't help but to hear that story and wonder, is there something that neither side has said? Where did the anger and hostility come from Cyborg's side? Particularly with the backstory where I'm telling you, Lorenzo worked this out with Invicta and was paying this, which is a very exorbitant number. To explain to you guys how much $90,000 is, if you're not at Bellator, if you're not in the UFC, $90,000 on a regional, oh my gosh, that is huge money. I may go as far as to say that is unheard of, that is unmatched. Likely nobody on a non-national and international stage has ever been paid that kind of purse. Huge money. Multiple times. You hear that. Then you see the opportunities given. Then you see how well Cyborg's doing. Even the fact that she had her own video team and went and got them credentialed and she's paying them and she's building Cyborg Nation. I mean, she's doing some stuff. Really, she's doing it great. She's got some opponents out there. Ooh, now she's got the mystique because she lost a fight. That's business-wise. That's good. Good for her business. Everything's going great. And all of a sudden, they're done. And I'm watching this and I'm going, okay, I get it. I followed all of the pieces here. But 2 + 2 is not equaling 4 in this scenario. There is some other divisible. And they've both been so candid. Both sides, it seems like they've told it A to Z. And I still have to sit back and wonder if there's a conspiracy and go, something's missing. I really feel that. Or, listen, maybe my partner Ariel hit it right on the head and it was nothing more than, you subtitled, you misquoted me, and that's off limits. And it is. It is to the highest level. I would suspect Cyborg would have to have a private conversation with whoever actually did that that's on her payroll. I would suspect that the UFC is going to have pushback and they are not going to come back. And that's a big deal. To go out and to misquote somebody, it's a very big deal. Does it end a relationship? Would a little embarrassment and an apology smooth it over? Yeah, probably. It probably would. Yes, you'd probably have to grab the phone, go, look, we made a mistake, error in judgment. My ego could not allow me to have it out there that I had turned down a fight, and here's what I did. So I don't know. I really don't know. I don't come to you guys with any new piece of information that you haven't already heard time and time again. I do feel bad for Chris, regardless of what she was saying. I think that whether she wanted to fight in the UFC or not, I think that she probably did have the right to have that as an option. But I don't know. And now she's saying, look, I'm happy. I couldn't be more glad to be done with it. It's a bad relationship from the start. And maybe it was. But when I do look at that, I got young fighters, I got teammates that are looking for opportunities. I must tell you, in fairness, I could only wish that they were given the same chances and the same opportunity and the same placement on the card and the same money, the same favors, the credentials, the team that gets to come in, the hotel rooms, the cornermen, the flights. I could only wish that they were treated that well. Perhaps there is more to this, or perhaps old Chael is just a conspiracy theorist. Either way, it seems as though all has ended well. It seemed like this weird marriage that nobody wanted to be in. Okay, great. Great. Let's just part ways. And that's where we're at. So, as much as that news is going on, I got to go back to Koby. I wake up this morning. I read a headline. I think I was at bloodyelbow.com. Colby Covington has been banned from Miesha Tate's show. Okay, I got to click on this. What could have Colby done to get him banned from a show? I have to start with that, and I will tell you guys this, and you know my relationship with Colby. It's in full disclosure. However, if Colby is a turnoff for you guys, or he is a turn on for you guys, if he is a loose cannon and you don't know what's going to happen and you hate him for it or you like him for either way, if this is the wrap on Colby, okay, I would have to tell you, when you invite him on your show, it is incumbent on you that you know what you're getting into. If Colby were to come on this show today and do or say something that was off color or provocative or shocking, I don't get to color myself Mr. Surprised when it happens. I lined up the guest. I brought him on largely hoping that something like that would happen. And that the show and the interaction that Colby and I have would be provocative, would be baffling, would perhaps be humorous, but it would be entertaining and interesting through and through. I just don't think that anybody gets to have Colby on the show, have him say something, and then deem, oh my goodness, that was over the lines. I can't believe you did that. Isn't that kind of the point? I mean, isn't that kind of the point? Don't we get it at this point? And know, hey, this guy's interesting. This guy's fun because he's interesting. Oh, and by the way, who knows what he's going to do or say? I think that it would be a little bit high-handed of me if I was to have Colby on and then after the fact deem that he was inappropriate. First off, who am I to judge? First off, I mean, in fairness, who am I to judge? And I will see this mistake made in the world of entertainment over and over. It just seems to me that if you have a non-spoken deal, which is I've got a show and I've got a big audience. Oh, by the way, the audience likes to hear from current active fighters in the MMA realm. I'm going to have a current active fighter on the show. It would seem to me that he would get to say his piece, whatever that was, and I would get to disagree with him, agree with him, pass it completely. But I don't think that I would then get to come out from a high-handed approach and say, we won't have any of that here. And I do seem to see that. Now, guys, look, there's of course lines to what I'm saying, right? There's of course a responsibleness if he was to come out again. Of course there's a responsibleness. I'm just saying if somebody comes out and they're a little bit hard or they throw it in my face, they want to kick me in the face a little bit. I made a living doing that. I made a living doing that to other guys. If it's going to happen back to me, I don't get just because I have the power of production and the power of editing. I don't think it would represent a large integrity for me to censor that and not put it out. I don't, even if I'm made to look a fool. Even if he came on the show and made me look a fool. Remember when I made Dan Le Batard look a fool? Remember when I did that? Multiple times. Because his intelligence is nowhere near on track. He thought he pocketed a few things. Didn't know MMA very well. Thought this guy can get some clicks. And tried to make me look stupid on his show. And I threw it back on him. Remember that? Well, guess what Le Batard did? He aired the show. He then cut it into a clip. He put it on YouTube. And guess what he titled it? Chael Sonnen makes Dan Le Batard look stupid. and he put it out. That's fair. That's very fair. He came at me. He tried to make me look a fool. I turned it on him. I mean, that's just what happened. He was a sport about it. Okay, I tried to do something. You flipped it on me, but I am going to let the world see it. I'm going to let this world see what I tried to do and what ended up happening in its entirety without an edit. He had the ability to make a phone call to somebody. Hey, could you put that out? Hey, could you not? Hey, let's burn that. He didn't do that. There's an integrity in that. And guess what? I would go back on his show anytime he wanted me, regardless of the tensions we had, because I can trust him. What more do I want? What more do I possibly want from a guy? Now, I am not looking to bury Miesha Tate. It's not a Miesha Tate is wonderful, and there could have been maybe Miesha pulling the strings. It could have been a producer. It could have been somebody over at Sirius that owns the show. Might not have even been Miesha's call. I don't know what happened there. But I will share with you that in the world of entertainment, I have seen this mistake made many times. I see it made in Hollywood many times. I have seen rappers come out and do it. Other artists come out and sing about and do this. Where instead of entertaining the audience, which is their one and only job, they will decide they want to preach to the audience. They want to deliver a message to the audience. They want to influence the audience. And all of a sudden, their records don't sell. And all of a sudden, the theaters are empty. And they're not getting booked, and they're not getting quotes, and they're not getting offered any new scripts and roles. And they call their manager up and goes, what happened over the last 9 months? My career is totally different. And the manager has to tell them, you started preaching to people. Instead of just singing the song, you started delivering a message. You started letting them know who you are and what you're about. And they had better agree with you, and they had better think what you think, or else they're out of the club. It's not entertainment. There's rules. I'm not saying to be irresponsible, guys. Don't come back on me and think of it. There's things that you can't say. There's words that you can't use. That's not what Koby's known for. That's not what Koby does. Koby goes out and has fun, and he pushes the envelope, and then he goes back in the gym, and he works his ass off, and he comes out, and he does the best he can in competition. It's not a terribly fun life. It's extremely hard. It's extremely driven. He hasn't been to a party since I don't know when. I mean, I can just tell you that. I know the life. He gets up to an alarm clock before he wants to, puts his shoes on, heads out the door, gets his miles in, avoids fast food. I mean, look, I could just go through a lot of stuff, but it's a very tough life. It requires a lot of discipline and dedication. And when he comes out and he talks to you guys, yes, he has some fun. Yes, he does. And yes, he is looking to upset some people and hurt some feelings. That's true. But he's in the right business to do that. It'd be very wrong to look down on him for that. I mean, I could tell you some stuff where you would go, whoa, Chael, what are you, sinister? What are you, a terrible person? You want to break somebody's arm? What kind of person? You want to go punch somebody in the face and hope that it breaks their nose? What's wrong with you? And I go, well, yeah, but time out. The person I'm talking about is a fighter. That's what the rules are. In fact, not only is that allowed, that's encouraged. In a very small, in a very regulated, in one sport walk of life. And you would have a different opinion. You want to go, oh, okay, you're a sinister and dark and twisted person. You're describing a prize fighter. Yes, yes, I am. I am describing a prize fighter who not only uses his hands and feet, he will also use a microphone. He doesn't want to go back in an alley and fight somebody. He wants to do it in an arena full of people watching. He's a prize fighter. He's a competitor. And he's an entertainer. I could not imagine having Koby on my show and then painting my color Mr. Surprised that he said something. Or he turned the gun on me. Maybe he would do that. But I've done that to other guys. I had a moment, to personalize this, I had a moment on ESPN. I don't know if I've shared this with you guys. John Jones will not do an interview with me. He will not do a segment with me. Now, I found that very underhanded of John because I work for ESPN. So that could make me look bad to my employer. You're now affecting my livelihood. So I would never do to John. John and I don't get along. John and I do not get along at all. I would never affect John's livelihood. Ever. Ever, ever, ever. I would punch him in the face right. I would get up out of this chair and go outside if he would give me the opportunity. And I'd take my punches right back. Believe me, I've tried that game with John. It's not a lot of fun. I would get up right now to go punch him in the face. I would never try to affect his livelihood. So I thought it was very underhanded. I thought it was even mean when he refused to come on ESPN and do it. But the first time he came on ESPN to let me know he wasn't going to do the interview with me was live. We were on live TV. He accepted the spot. He comes on. He scolds me. Only talks to Ariel. Exit stage left. And then after that, now he won't even come back on. Now it's not like Ariel and I can both be on and Ariel only talks to John and I sit there like a fool, right? He just won't come on at all. Oh, is Chael there? Oh, I'm not coming. It's like a punishment. The world's biggest sports network, he won't come on to get his own message out as a punishment to me. A little bit weird. Either way, this is the math that he did. So the day that he did that, the day that he came on live and rebuked me, people had said to me, hey, Chael, were you okay with that? We put that out. We aired that. Are you okay with that? I said, guys, of course. I have done that to other guys. I do not get to cry and be a little baby because somebody got tough with me in an interview and smacked me in the mouth. Inside, I was a little bit embarrassed. Inside, we're on live TV. I thought, this isn't great. Jon Jones, champion of the world. ESPN has the right to invite him on. Jon Jones has earned the right to come on and say his message. And I thought there's a way that we all should have been able to work together there. And that's generally what you see. I mean, I'll take you back to last week. Colby Covington beats Robbie Lawler. Dana White announces he's fighting Kamaru Usman. Okay, great. Fight business. We know what's next. Well, Kamaru Usman is now on the desk for ESPN. He's dressed in the suit. He looks great. He's doing an awesome job. Colby's coming on set. They're going to do this on live TV. How are you going to do that when these two have such heat with each other? I mean, they got into some kind of a confrontation. I think it was the Palms. This was all caught on like an iPhone. Punches were thrown. I'd have to go back and what, but it was serious. Security was called, possibly even the police. They were both thrown out of the hotel. I think it was forever. It was a big deal. How are you possibly going to walk them up on live TV on a set? So they bring security. But these guys, even with their tensions, which is very real, there is nothing manufactured here. This is very real heat between Koby and Kamaru. There's still a sportsmanship to it, right? There's still an understanding that I don't like you and you don't like me. And here we are in this spot that we both asked for, which is going to allow us to both go out and fight each other, which is what we want. And even though we don't like each other, and even though this is very real, and even though we've had trouble in the streets, if you will, we are now business partners. We are now partners. We are going to do a night of business. We're going to make a weight class. We're going to file a protocol. We're going to do the agreed upon licensing and medical procedures, and we will contest this under the unified rules. But the final piece is we will do that at an agreed upon time in an agreed upon location. So let's come up, let's do our TV. You say what you have to say, I'll say what I have to say, and we don't get any closer than this. There's something about that you must respect within this sport. There's just something about it that I will never lose the appreciation of the sportsmanship that could go into a sport like this that has very few rules, but it still has honor. Amongst real men and real athletes, you will always have an honor. You will not take something from somebody else. You will try to beat them. You will compete with them for it. You will not try to take something from their livelihood. You will contribute to it. You will wait to the agreed upon location, at the agreed upon time, under the agreed upon rules, in the agreed upon weight class. Because you're partners. But once the referee says go, there's also rules, and you're going to go. And there's something about that is very beautiful, but it must be maintained and it must be understood. I don't think that it was fair. I didn't see the interview. I don't even know what was said. I don't think that it was fair to invite Koby on, to have Koby kick a little dirt in your face. You decide that he made you look a fool, and then not put it out. I also don't think it's fair for me to say this and attach Miesha's name to it. I have a feeling that somebody else made that decision, and it's just Miesha's show. I do not think that you guys should be mad at Miesha, and I could be wrong about that. But I know Miesha pretty well. She's got pretty thick skin. That's just not how I see that happening. But whoever did make that decision, I think that there's fair play there. Plenty of sports guys go after you. But if you tried to come back, then they don't want to be a willing participant. I had one of these things happen. I was promoting a submission underground. And it was John Jones, speaking of, versus Dan Henderson. A great match. And a sought-after match. And Dan had already retired, but UFC 151, I mean, it had the draw, just had all this different stuff where it didn't matter if these guys were going to go out and arm wrestle. You wanted to see those guys go, whatever they were going to do, you wanted to see them do it, and you wanted some closure. Somebody to get their hand raised and somebody to not win. Okay, great. So I had some guy call from Seattle. I agreed to do his show, and it was a pre-tape show. And this guy didn't know which way was up. I mean, he didn't know anything about anything in terms of MMA, grappling, boxing, combat of any kind. And I let him know that. I did let him know. I mean, he had said some stuff that was so off the wall. Now, that doesn't make him a bad guy. It doesn't even make his show bad. I don't know this guy's history. Maybe he's a sports guy, but he mainly covers baseball, and he was giving MMA a chance. I was grateful to the numbskull. But when he was saying stuff that was so off the board, you got to call him on it. There's no other way to do an interview. Can't just play along as he's got his facts all upside down and backwards. Got to call him on it. And he had said something to me on there. He goes, I really like covering MMA. But so many people tell me not to do it that I just don't know enough about it. And that's when I took he got like 7 or 8 things wrong, including my name. Not for nothing, but he welcomes on, Chael Sonnen or whatever he calls me, which is very rude. So he finally tells me, people tell me I shouldn't cover this, that I just don't know enough about it. And that was a door I saw. I said, man, those people are giving you good advice. You haven't got the foggiest idea what you're talking about. This is kind of a unique sport. It's a niche sport. Our fans are hardcore, and they're also really well educated, and there's not a ton of them. If you do better in baseball, go do baseball. But our they know what's going on. We've only got a few outlets for information. We love it. There's not enough of it. There's not enough Bellator and enough UFC on TV, as much as there is, and they're starved for it. They just know what's going on. We just have a very educated fan. You think my name is Chael. I mean, not for nothing. The people telling you not to cut, they're right. Dum-dum. It never saw the light of day. He thought I made him look a fool. He told me off after I told him off. He told me off. Told me what a jerk I was. People warned me about you. I should have listened to him. I hang up the interview and I'm thinking, this is great. It's going to get a lot of attention. Dan versus John Jones is going on. We plugged it. Going to get a good little plug. Get a good little bounce from it. Great. No, never sees the light of day. I gave him my time. He decided I made him look a fool, and he didn't put it out. I'm going, oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. How do you not understand this? It's a two-way street. Sometimes you're the racket, sometimes you're the ball. Be a sport about it. Have some balls. I see this lost in entertainment all the time. Quit trying to give people messages. Quit shoving your ideas down their throat. Just entertain. Do nothing else. Write a script, sing a song, have some fun. Entertain the crowd. You put it out there, let them decide. If they like it, repeat the recipe, come back and do it again. Very basic. For most. All right, guys, on a lighter note, and before we get out of here, I want to make a comment. So Frankie Edgar has announced that he's going to bantamweight. This is great news for a few reasons. First off, changing weight classes is just a very good way to get a fresh coat of paint. You get a start over. Because guess what? Guess what his record is? 0 losses. Now, it might be 0-0, but he's got 0 losses. It's a great move. I like it. I prefer when guys go up in weight as to when they go down. That's from a competitive standpoint, but I understand it. And the reason I took this as such good news is, first off, we have the answer. There was a big question. What's Frankie going to do? And all options were on the table in my mind. In my mind, maybe he was going to stay at 145 and just not be a title challenger. Be one of the guys, very normal part in a guy's career, right? You start at the very bottom of the card, you work your way to the main card, you go co-main, you go to the main event, and then you work your way back down. And just like you came in, at one point you weren't in the business, and at one point you're no longer in the business, right? Just the way it goes. Is he going to do that? Is he going to go back to 155? Not likely, but not crazy. He's proved he could do it. Is he going to retire? And that was the big one that was a question mark for me, because he's a fantastic fighter. Skill-wise, he most certainly does not need to retire. But I think it was also an option. When you have a guy that is a competitor, he's not out there fighting for the money. He's out there fighting for the accomplishment. He wants to be a world champion. And when he gets in that spot where, look, we don't have a competitive architecture within the sport, right? It's not a straight line bracket like, say, the NCAA has with March Madness. It's not like that. And when you get those opportunities, it's very hard to get them again. It just is. It's a reality. So I didn't know what he was going to do. But now he's going to 135. I mean, you can't shut the door on anything, including a Frankie Edgar title shot at some point. You can't. Particularly when you have a guy like Cejudo who is calling out Frankie Edgar. I'm not predicting for you guys or reporting to you in any fashion that Frankie's going to be fighting Cejudo for a championship. I'm not. But I will stand my ground and push back to anybody that says that's simply not possible. And don't forget, hope is that's the only thing somebody wants. In life as a whole, not just this sport, you need hope. I hope that someday this can happen. And therefore, up until then, I am willing to sacrifice and struggle. You need hope. I think that we've got some real clarity here. Frankie Edgar is going to 135. Great, we established that. Frankie Edgar is not going to retire. Great, we've established that. That's my 2 cents on it. In case you guys thought this was headed somewhere brilliant, it's not. But I will tell you, as a fan, I'm happy to hear it. And I would be remiss. I had Big John on a week ago, and the show did crazy. Apparently, you guys really like Big John, or you guys like Big John and I together. I don't know. Either way, did incredible numbers. And one thing that John and I had talked about, the premise of this is less rounds in the sport, not only of MMA, but in boxing. Is that better for safety? And is that something that should be revisited? Without banging that drum again, I'm just sharing with you, that was our premise. And then we went into extend that thought, and we took it to Alexander Gustafsson, who retired. And I looked at that and I go, okay, Gus, if you want to be done, then you get to be done. But if you're done because you think you can't do this anymore, I must tell you, as an outsider, I have a better perspective of your skills and where you're at in your career than you do. That may sound arrogant, it may even sound silly, but guys, I'm right. I, meaning all of you, the viewer, us fans, have a better assessment of when a guy should be done than he does. Carlos Condit retired at the wrong time, physically. He really did. Carlos was great, and his matchups were incredibly hard, and he was very competitive, and he called it at the wrong time. Gus, if we're talking from a physical standpoint, is calling it at the wrong time. Where I bring that up and what Big John and I had talked about specifically as it pertains to Gus, is that Gus could fight anybody at any time in any arena, but don't make it a main event. Before you take yourself from the highest part of the sport and then you throw yourself out, don't forget what we talked about earlier, which is the ascension and then the descension of the sport. You're not even in it. Then you finally get a contract. Then you finally get put on TV. Then you work your way up to co-main and maybe a main, and boy, for the very rare people, a title shot. And then you work your way back down. It's the same thing as in Hollywood. The guys that's starring in the movies and name is on the marquee has all of a sudden got a lot smaller role. It's just the way that it goes. It's the nature of the business. It's the nature of the beast. It's just the way that it goes. And I thought that Gus did not follow that by taking himself from world title fights and 5-round main events against the baddest dudes in the world to out completely. If you want to be done, if it's a mental thing, then you're out. But consider following the natural progression, which is go ahead and work yourself down the card a little bit. There's no shame in that. No shame whatsoever. But it would put you in a 3-round atmosphere, which would change how hard you have to train, in fairness. And if a guy gets a little bit older, that could be helpful. It would change the stress of the evening. As I tie this back into what John and I had talked about with Gus, perhaps that is a dialogue that Frankie needs to consider. Coming into 135 is a great, brand new, fresh coat of paint. Trying to climb the ladder, respectable and honorable, and I hope that he does it. I would also suggest, as you're trying something new and you're trying a new weight class, perhaps you change the dynamic of the contest itself, which is to jump back into a 3-round fight. There's a part of when I say that comes off as anti-competitive. I don't mean for it to sound that way. I just don't have any other rhetorical skills to say what I'm thinking without saying it that way. Don't be afraid, as you're trying something new and you're taking some extra pounds off, to find yourself in a different atmosphere. Food for thought, something to consider. Guys, I've had it with you all, but I'll be back on Wednesday. Until then, I'm Chael Sonnen. Thanks for listening, and you are welcome.